In part 2, we talk about Anne's personal health story and spiritual awakening, the differences between the third, fourth, and fifth dimensions, recognition of beauty and oneness, personal experiences of the March 2012 energy shifts, dramatic art and acting as a key into spirituality and higher connection, and USA to UK energetic links and the internet as a tool into the Great Gathering.
And I was doing, he said, you're thinking of something. So I said, no, it's all right, because my GP had completely dismissed the symptoms that I presented with him, and I felt very stupid. However, I said, well, I've got this noise. And he said, what, tinnitus? I said, no. I said, it's a noise in my head, but you can hear it if you put your ear to mine. And he said, I've got a better idea. And I thought, he picked up his stethoscope. I thought, oh, yes, of course. And he put the stethoscope to my left ear and he jumped back.
Wow.
How long have you had that? I said, 2 years, and told him the story. And then he brought a student in, and it was at that point that I thought, right, this is another one for the books. So to concertina everything in, this was a hole that had developed between an artery and a vein, and it was the noise of the blood being sucked down by the vein through this hole. And I had to go and have investigations, and it was during the initial investigation that a man, Martin, who was there to look after his epileptic daughter, this was in the Atkinson Morley Brain Hospital in Wimbledon. We both had a spiritual experience there, because as I went off with the nurse to have what was called an embolization, in other words, they were going to use an instrument to block the hole, and I said I'd written goodbye letters to my husband and my children because they told me how dangerous it was. And he was stunned with that as I left him in the restroom, and I walked off with the nurse, and then as I was rounding the corner, he came running up to me and told me, you're going to be fine. And he took my shoulders and kissed me on the cheek. Oh, and that shocked him. Well, fine. I said fine, and I was fine. They couldn't do it because of the state of my vessels. However, he came back and he found me in the afternoon. He said, you're fine. I said, of course. I'm fine. You told me I would be.
Yeah.
He said, Anne, he said, have you got faith? And I said, yes, I have.
Definitely now.
Right. He said, I have to tell you something. I don't even understand it myself. I was standing there stunned with what you just said, possibly walking to your death. And then this chap behind me said, go and tell her she'll be fine. And he thought, yeah, that's nice, I really will. He said, and I turned around and there was nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
He went, oh, I'm going mad. Right, okay. So he still stood there thinking, I'm going mad. Tell her she'll be fine. Still nobody there, so he went to the corridor, saw me walking up the corridor, and he said, you were surrounded in white light.
Oh, wow.
He said, tell her she'll be fine. He said, and I was pushed. That's when I ran to you.
So when was this?
This was 10 years ago. 10 years ago, and yes, I was fine, but I had to have the same operation again a week later, because there were 2 of these fistulas, as they were called. But during the operations, which had only been performed 4 times before in the world, I didn't bleed, and the surgeon didn't understand it at all.
Was it the same surgeon?
Yes. And
so he believed because he knew.
she,
okay.
it was a lady brain surgeon,
Oh.
and she was stunned that it was a textbook operation, not only that I didn't bleed, but that the teams that she had on standby learnt so much through what had happened to me that it was going into the medical books. My case was going into the medical books. And here I am. I'm not damaged. She said I could have killed you at any time, at least damaged you physically. But
So 10 years ago.
10 years,
10 years
and
ago,
then
yeah.
Reiki found me.
How did Reiki find you after this?
2 years later, my sister-in-law had been attuned to Reiki. She's a nurse, and it was starting to come through. So she was telling me all about this, and by this time I'd moved on from church. I felt there was more, but I didn't know where or how. And we were, walking through our local town, and she stopped to talk to what I thought was a charity collector. But the youngsters that were out at that time were taking half the money as fees for collecting for children's charities. And I was not going to go back to this girl. She was still, and I was waiting on the corner. I think, come on, Valerie. In the end, I walked back, and then she said, oh, this is Sarah, she's a Reiki teacher. So she became my Reiki teacher, my Reiki master, and my dear spiritual teacher, daughter, friend, because she was young. She was a young girl. And by goodness, doing the work that you're both doing blew me away, but with such humility. And that set me on the path to, and then eventually meeting Dee with our joint therapy, thought field therapy that we trained in, and onwards and upwards, qualified as a counsellor, and now I run a healing group that meet.
You've had an amazing journey.
And I am so grateful for it. Yes, health-wise, it's been difficult in my life. And this is what you were saying earlier, Magenta, about physical difficulties. And I had a while, when I was on the journey, did I bring this physical problems to myself? Is there something I need to address to gain full health? Because I'm not a strong physical person. I do get weak very easily. And I constantly got no, but you have chosen these life lessons. And I can honestly say that despite or because of the physical problems I've had in my life, I have grown, I've become strong, I've become humbled by this amazing body I inhabit for teaching me these lessons, and I love it every day, even though it gets rather weak now and again, but it hasn't stopped me growing into this amazing dimension that I just love being in. I love this flying feeling, this spiritual flying, if you like, and the intuition and the guidance you get through very specific dreams. And I started channeling, and I channel with writing. And I was talking to Dee about that this morning, and she actually told me that what I've already received could be a book. So maybe that's an avenue that I can look into.
It's amazing. These health conditions, I'm told, are gateways into inspiration and into that realm for some people and for many people. And one thing the Nine have told me is all natural healers will take a personal healing journey. It's something that comes to us. Most people delegate the responsibility of their health to another, for example, a doctor or whoever it may be. It's a case of, I'm ill, what are you going to do about it? Give me some medicine. That is a third density way of thinking. And when you shift into, okay, I have a health issue, I'm not going to fight it, it's not going to be in a battle with me, I'm not going to beat it, I'm going to blend with it, welcome it and work with it. How can I do that? I'm going to take responsibility for my health. Spiritually and physically, with perhaps nutrition or Reiki or yoga or whatever healing journey you go upon. When you do that, you shift, and as you heal yourself, you become the master healer, because you've healed yourself and you've taken responsibility for that yourself. Then you can turn that around and heal others. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be in a perfect state of health before you become the healer. You become the healer as you heal yourself.
Yes.
As I too have a health issue that I'm working with, so I've had similar challenges, as in, do I hide this health issue away and not talk about it, or do I present it as part of me? And the Nine would say, you be you. You be real. You don't think, I'm not going to talk to people or do a workshop or go in front of a camera if I'm feeling a bit off, or I must be perfect before I channel.
Yeah.
It isn't like that. We are all going into this higher dimension together, and we are working with the physical body.
Yes.
And it isn't something that's going to happen overnight with the click of our fingers. It's a transitional flow as we work, and it's not easy. It can be tough, but when you're in the fifth density, the bliss and the joy and the feeling of flying, the activating of the Merkaba, it's just so rewarding. It's such a free place to be. You can breathe there. You get down in third density, you can't breathe. It's so crowded. And it's not a good feeling. Get up into fourth, that's a bit better, but it's still a bit confusing. It's still a little bit sort of, it's better than third. In fifth, I mean, it's rainbows and loving beings of light, and it's all in us.
Yes. In fact, if I may just add one other level of transition, after the birth of my third child, I had what was called postnatal depression, but it happened 6 months later. But actually what I had was a nervous breakdown, and I was ill for a year. My husband was absolutely amazing, helping to look after 3 little babies, because I had 3 in less than 3 years, separate births, so that was hard going. However, we were coming up to the year, and I knew I was recovering enough to be able to be more independent and go out and do something. So I thought, right, I'm going to go to night school. What can I do that isn't too taxing on my brain? In other words, I didn't want to study. So eventually I found an art class. And I tried pottery to start with, but that was too exhausting, standing up the whole time. So anyway, next door, it turned out, was the art class that I would join. And I started just sketching still life, perhaps cups on a table, perhaps a vase or a lamp or fruit. And I so enjoyed that. And eventually my tutor said to me, why don't you try something else, Anne? You're doing really good with things like that. And I thought, I love animals. So flicked through the geographical magazines that were in the art room, and I found a gorilla. You know how they look so intensely at you, and they must know stuff that we don't know. So I painted. I've always used pastel, but we still call it a painting. And I painted this gorilla, and I was thrilled to bits with it. So I then moved on to different animals and different creatures. Well, my son now is 31, and I've been painting all these years. I have exhibited in London, I have sold through London galleries, and I have had commissions through galleries, and I have a website, and I love painting. And I think it was you, Dee, that channeled that those that see my paintings now, and they're still of nature mainly, big cats in particular, that whoever loves my work and sees will receive the love that I have had creating it, will receive that love.
And more than love, it's the language of light, it's the light codes which are coming through the new artists, the new musicians. So would you say that your art has either helped you to discover spirituality or express it?
Oh, it's both? Definitely express it, because when I'm connecting with my animals that I'm painting, I like to have a theme of family or something like that, that my heart is connecting to the young cubs and their mothers, or the cub and the father, or my one I did a few months ago was a polar bear and cub that must have just emerged from the hole. The cub is so tiny, wrapped up in the mother's arms, you know, and that's one that was just so gorgeous. So that's the love, and you're absolutely right. So I'm feeling deep love for the subject, and just love getting it just right. And
isn't that the way that when we're really in that creative, inspirational flow,
absolutely.
that's whether we're channeling, whether we're in your case with your art or your work, and Dee with your work and whatever it is we're doing, it's from that place, isn't it? It's like that unconditional love.
And that's the spirituality. It doesn't have to be meditation or angels or vortexes. That baby polar bear. In
New
that
life.
tiny baby polar bear, everything is there. When you just look at the wonder of this beautiful baby creature, you notice different things in fifth density that you might have ignored or just not seen before. I was never much into nature or flowers. I used to laugh at my mum when she'd spend all the time in the garden. Oh, I love my flowers, I do. I'd be like, whatever. But now,
you're just admiring
just
them.
one flower. So this recognition of the nature and the oneness in everything.
Yes.
Have any of you had any experiences recently? Because I know that there's been some shifts in March, and a lot of people have been feeling that. I know we've spoken about it. Have you had any experiences, personal experiences, that you'd like to share that's particularly maybe coming into an ascension process or a fifth density experience, or something that shifted you into a bliss, joy experience?
I've got a feeling you've got something to tell.
I think well, it's kind of a meeting with somebody, isn't it, for me? I met a guy in Canada.
That's
and,
Daniel.
That's Daniel.
Yes,
Daniel.
Yeah.
And since meeting him, I
he is here today, by the way.
I know he's here.
We can't actually see him in front of the camera, but he has consciously projected his energy to our talk today, as he's told us both he will. So
it's quite interesting.
Thanks for joining us, Daniel.
Yeah, thanks, Daniel. And also, we've obviously exchanged some keys because I take on some of his mannerisms, and he will understand that when I say it to him. And I think, Daniel, get out of my head. And so I think since I've met Daniel, and I can't even go into the time frame of this. I did a talk at your coffee morning, I think it was in February, and then maybe a couple of weeks, maybe 2, 3, 4 weeks after that, you mentioned about Daniel, and we had so many coincidences. I mean, him before me, and then when we spoke together, and we seem to have this connection now, which is just keeping me, not taking me, it's keeping me in that place continuously. And gosh, this is a great place to be, and I hope somebody else can actually tap into that energy, because it's awesome. Awesome
I've tapped into it.
Yeah, I mean, it really, you don't want to be anywhere else, do you?
I'm tapping away.
Yeah. You do not want to be anywhere else.
Definitely not.
So, that's my experience, certainly within the last month, and I would say that it's taken me, if I was 10, I'm now 100. Without doubt, and you've seen the difference, haven't you?
Yes.
It's just quite incredible. We don't catch up as often as we used to, but poor Anne, as she walked through the door, I've had verbals ever since she walked through the door. We've had lunch. Can you eat?
So she's been walked in, been bombarded with a load of new downloads, and a camera in her face. And then she's sitting here telling her life story.
I'm sorry, guys, but I was in amateur dramatics for 7
I
years.
was as well. I was as well. But since I was
truthfully,
9, I've been in amateur dramatics and some professional theatre work as well. Not a lot, but that's very interesting actually, because that's another thing the 9 have spoken to me about greatly. As I did a lot of amateur dramatics and, as I said, some professional work, I was with the National Youth Theatre of Great Britain.
Gosh.
So I expected from a very young age that I would be an actress, or I think it's actor now. I think actress has been dropped. I expected to be an actor. That was my goal. There was nothing else, and I knew this from, I think, the age of even before I started acting at 9. I must have been really, really young, 3 or 4, and I knew that's what I wanted to do. Yet now, I'm not doing that, I'm doing this. So I've spoken to the 9. What they've shown me is the template and the lessons that came with drama and acting gave me all the tools I needed in order to be able to connect and channel and deliver messages.
Yes.
So the characterisation in developing other characters is a sideways creative process.
Yes.
Which is the same thing as channeling, only you're channeling a higher consciousness, as in a consciousness that has more substance than a character. All characters have substance. And the public speaking, the speaking in front of people, the right inflections, when I do the same as you, write my channeling, and when I reread the channeling, I direct speak it as well, but not as often. But when I reread it,
Yeah.
the 9 will show me where the inflection goes. It's important that certain words have an energy to them, and that's all the drama training coming in.
Yes.
The other thing that came up for me recently is to be able to use drama and theatre, and Daniel Nessa McLean is also an actor, so I've had these discussions with him, be able to use drama as a template into channeling and connecting with the higher self. For example, anyone can do this. They don't have to be an actor, they don't have to have any acting tools. They literally develop a character, and that character is a channel, and then they in an improvisational setting, they channel a being or deity. But they're pretending. They're not doing it for real, they're pretending. But as they pretend, and I've watched people work, or specifically someone work who's actually behind the camera at the moment.
Yes.
I've actually watched someone and worked with them this way, and as I interviewed this actor pretending to be a channel, pretending to channel this being or this geometric structure, I could see the template creating, because the imagination and the creation has levels to it.
Yes.
So each time you go into a new field. So any actor will tell you that they've lived within their character, or maybe they've taken on the persona of their character. What are they doing? They're swapping keys with their character and downloading templates in order to live in a truthful way to present that character to their audience. Yeah. So do you have any sort of thing to say about that, really, as an actress yourself?
Yes, I mean, I think you're right. It was a long, long time ago. My husband and I have been married for over 30 years now, and he's not theatre at all, and I stopped when we got married, so never really gone back into it. And it's really strange that Magenta said about so young, and having that knowledge. I similarly, I loved being in the school plays and projecting, and my big thing was, I'm going to be famous. I'm not going to be a nobody, you know. And for me, being famous was going to be through acting, and the drama that I did and grew through in the amateur dramatic roles, I ended up holding the stage pretty much on my own for 2 hours in the last performance that I did. And that to me was really a pinnacle of my training.
Absolutely.
Exactly what you said. I was in musicals as well within the amateur field, but because I got married at the same time then, I never fulfilled what I thought might have been my dream. But you know what? I don't think I would have been brave enough to have gone professional. It was sort of a dream of being in that world. However, giving talks and being in front of people doesn't daunt me. You know, being prepared, make sure you know your lines and make sure you know what you need to talk about. But being up there in front of somebody...
opposite from me then. I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about.
Well, in actual fact, with the work you do, I don't think you should do, really.
Well,
it should be fresh.
With the channeling, it's a bit of both. You have a template, and then, you know, Jess and I, we did this workshop Friday, and we were both told that we wouldn't be told everything that we'd be saying. You can't script it because it's in the moment.
You've
but
said that quite often, haven't you? Yeah.
With the acting, you know, in a certain character, there'll be a time when the energy that you're portraying to the audience isn't necessarily in the text, it's in the pauses.
Yes.
So as you stop, you hold the audience. You feel the audience and the energy of the audience, and then you go back in. And that's when you bring them wonder and inspiration with the way you present your character. Well, the spiritual world is the same thing. That's where all the training came in for me personally. I know other people have been trained for this in different ways. But for me, within the workshop, it's about connecting and holding the energy and feeling that person. It's not quite the same as an audience because you are a character. It's more of a upgraded version of it, but all that is great training. I mean, anyone listening to this conversation, if you aren't quite feeling that you're connected, or you feel that there's something there and that channeling isn't quite coming through in the way you would like, drama classes, brilliant tool. One of many. Art is another. You know, there are many tools to key in, but drama classes is one of them. I have
and a lot of fun.
And that's where I
Huge
found my
fun.
network. From a young age as well, from at least 3 or 4 or 5 years old, I knew I had to look for some people, but I didn't know where they were, and I felt very out of place with all the people I found. And I found those people at the age of 9 well, it wasn't amateur drama, I was still at school, but at drama club and in drama class.
Yes.
I found those people because when we linked into a improvisation, I was in the other realm, not this one.
Yes. Yes.
So I found my people. But really, the people I was looking for is all of you, and all the light workers throughout the world who are taking place in this great gathering right now.
Yeah, there was something you mentioned earlier on, and you were saying, we were talking about America and here in the UK, how different we are. And came through really strongly that we're groundkeepers and they are gatekeepers. Okay, so we in the UK, I don't know if that means anything to anyone here.
Yeah, it does to me.
Definitely. Yeah, that's what I heard very strongly when you were talking when you first started.
And it's interesting because this is just coming through now. Thank you very much. It's important because America is going through a huge change consciously at the moment, as the whole world is, but particularly America. And they chose to be there at this time, because things are changing as we are aware. And it's interesting how Magenta has been speaking to around the world, but also to the Americans in particular, are very interested in the work. And so that has been an initial grounding. And they are keen and interested to hear our vibrational link, and that's what's going on now. We don't speak the same language, and I'm finding that very interesting with my connection with Daniel and Ethel McLean, because we do speak a different language.
Yes,
so I'm actually adjusted to that very quickly because of the keys that were exchanged. But we had a conversation, didn't we, where we felt we didn't speak similarly to Magenta and to Daniel, but actually now I'm understanding it more. And this must be what's happening to the American market when the audience, when they're actually listening to Magenta. So Magenta is actually grounding an energy within their psyche, within them, which is very much needed at this time. And it's almost, we talk about people wanting to look, having to look inside and find their oneness, find themselves, but they're still searching, they're still making sure, have we actually got it, is it really there? So with the likes of our energies that they are honing into now, we will be able to cement into, I'm using that word because it's the most grounded you can be, isn't it? Cement something into the ground, literally, that they can actually hold on to and become more attached to that energy form.
And isn't it amazing how the internet is enabling this, and what you were saying also earlier on about, can you, you asked Dee, can you actually, tune into that from here, or do you need to look into somebody's eyes?
Yes.
So, this internet, the fact that we're all connecting in this way, just again, it's just that vibration that's the tool, isn't it?
Yes.
The tool is the internet to bring us together and connect, and as you say, grounding these energies, and what you're saying there makes sense, because we're all that oneness, aren't we? And we're learning that different aspect of ourselves, so that's the tool to enable us to do it.
Yes.
So
95% of my clients are in the US, and I speak to them over Skype. So I when I asked Dee the question, I kind of know already that can be done, because I work this way with my clients. And often we're not with video link, it's a photograph, but the energy link can be done across Skype, and it can be done via radio shows, Blog Talk Radio, websites.
Yes.
And through forums, out of time. You don't need to actually speak to somebody. You can leave a message at 4 o'clock, they'll get it 48 hours later. Email. That energy can be passed through words, because there's no containment for it.
That's it.
It's out of time, it's out of space, it's that link can occur, and it's occurring telepathically through dream time. Many times I have travelled in the astral over to America, and at first I would get in a hot air balloon, and
water balloon, that sounds
just fly across this astral ocean and land in America. That's how it started. And then the 9 would sort of strap me into this